Okay, so today we are doing the invocation. And as I said, invocation is not the part of Isopanishad. Invocation is more like a pranam mantra you're saying in the beginning. Okay. And so let's see what it is. Oh, okay. I thought I had a slide also something. Let's see. Okay. So as we have been doing it, so with for this also we'll divide the invocation. There are 5 paragraphs, not a long purport, but a lot of important things in these 5 paragraphs. And Prabhupada will walk us through these 5 important aspects that because when we'll read the purport, let's just read the paragraph. The here. So the verse is Om Purna Madha Purna Vidam Purnat Purna Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Evavashishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as a complete whole. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete by itself. And because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. A lot of the Prabhupada uses a trick of words here. First, he says personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and he says he's completely perfect. So just a play of words. Prabhupada is an expert in that, how he presents the philosophy. So, so let's now break it up into parts. The Prabhupada's purport is broken down into parts. So in the first paragraph, Prabhupada will explains how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the complete absolute truth. Just to remind you, Prabhupada does not use the word Krishna here, does not take a name. And we'll discuss it further as we go on. Then the second part he says is that the material world is complete. Then third paragraph, he explains how the human form, it offers complete facility for its purpose, whatever its purpose is. But then why do we feel incomplete? It's because sense gratification. And what makes us feel complete is devotional service. So Prabhupada very expertly walks us through the whole concept of being complete and why we feel lacking or incomplete in any sense and what can make us complete. So this is, Prabhupada has put it perfectly there. So, okay. Second. Okay. So in this verse, Om Purnam Ada. So Ada, Prabhupada has translated as that. Okay. But then when we come to so this is the word by word meaning, but when Prabhupada brings it to the purport, sorry, the translation, he says it's the personality of Godhead. Okay. So that's just, I want to highlight that. Ada, right? So Ada, that, and what is the other word? This phenomenon. Ada. Yes. So that. Okay. So that means it's what is being discussed. That. So that's what Ada means. And Prabhupada is telling us that that means the personality of Godhead. Right? So from that complete, this complete has come. And even when the complete comes out of the complete Purna, the Purna, complete personality of Godhead remains complete. Right? So it's a very mystical way of glorifying the Absolute. Right? So what is the verse telling us? The verse by itself is not telling us what it is referring to. It's not stated directly. Upanishads are written like that. They are meant to be enigmatic, they're meant to be puzzling. And the reason for that is the Isopanishads, if you remember, let me see if I can show you where's the slides? The last time when we discussed, I showed you how the Upanishads come under the Gyan Kanda. So Jnana means knowledge, right? So there are people who are very intellectual in nature. They're looking for knowledge. Okay, if you present the philosophy in a very simple way, they'll say, "Ah, no, this looks too simple to be true. We want something, mind wrecking and like cryptic, and so that gives me that makes my juices flowing." So Upanishads fall under that category. That is why the Upanishads are written in this way, right? That they are written in this cryptic way, and that is why it does not state directly who it is referring to. So yeah, so intellectuals like stuff that stretches their mind. So what the verse is telling us is the absolute truth is infinite. and millions of universes come out from him, he's still complete. Right? So, as I was saying, that even though in the verse by itself it looks ambiguous, but Prabhupada explains in the translation as Supreme Personality of God. Okay? So, Isopanishad, as I was just showing you, is a Shruti. Okay? And Upanishads being, how to say, I'm just trying to elaborate upon why is the language so cryptic. Upanishads are very transitional. What I mean by transitional is that, so our Vedas, as I have told you all, many of you have joined after that, but I have mentioned in the past that our scriptures is meant for everybody. Nobody is excluded from the picture. Wherever you are in your life, Upanishads or the scriptures are there for you. You can start from right there itself. Krishna talked about this in the 12th chapter, right? That Mayeva manadasva, my buddhi niveshaya, nivashishati mayeva, ataudvam na samshaya. That, you just become my devotee. Atha chittam samadhatum na suknoshi maistaram abhyasa yogi na tato mamichhaptum dhananjaya. If you can't become a pure devotee, then at least work for me. So what we all are doing is just in that we are following the rules and regulations as Prabhupada has given us. And then after that, Krishna says, oh, if you can't follow rules and regulations, just offer something to me. Let's say whatever you're working. Even if you can't offer something to me, at least do something in the mode of goodness. So Krishna is very merciful that he includes everybody in the fold. He doesn't want anybody to go out of the fold. As that he's built a house for everybody. Krishna wants everybody to be in his house, but some people say, nah, I don't want to stay in your house. Then Krishna says, okay, you can stay in the garden, but at least stay within the perimeter of the house. So that's the concept of our scriptures. So where do Upanishads fit in this full path? That they are taking people who are doing material activities for their material prosperity, and it's meant to take them to bhakti. Bhakti being the ultimate goal. So people who are doing these fruitive activities, which are coming from the Vedas, worshipping Ganesha, whenever you start a new thing, worshipping Saraswati for knowledge, worshipping somebody if you want to get a good spouse and so forth. So all that is given in the Vedas. So all these people, they are pious in nature, but they are not yet devotees because they're still struggling with the concept of, hey, I need something for myself. Even though they're taking a path which is more spiritual in nature, but they're still stuck with the concept of material gratification. So there are people this group of people are called karma kandi. Okay. So these karma kandis are people who are materially prosperous, and they worship, as I mentioned, all these Chandra, Indra, so forth. And they're materially powerful, and they're praying for material prospects. Upanishads, what Upanishads are teaching us, they are teaching us to reject material forms and everything temporary and takes people towards the absolute. But then the Upanishads don't focus on the absolute truth directly. They're just nudging people towards absolute. Hope it's making sense what I'm trying to tell you here. So there is one end where people are really into material life. What Upanishads are trying to do is bringing them from that negative, if you're on a number line, from the negative to zero. So zero is where they start working for, they have this concept of the absolute, even though they don't know who that absolute is. But they have this concept. So it's taking people from that negative to zero. That's what Upanishads are doing. Bhakti is the positive part, right? That's why the absolute truth is not mentioned in this Isopanishad. You will not see in any single verse Krishna's name there, right? And that's why Prabhupada is following the same concept, and he doesn't use the name Krishna in the Upanishad. But through the purport, Prabhupada will show us how Isopanishad is taking us from an impersonal concept to a personal conclusion. I'll take a pause here and see if this all made sense to you. It can be a bit complicated. I'm hoping that my words made sense.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So why is Prabhupada not mentioning Krishna? Is it because he wants to take us towards Bhakti?
He's not doing it because the Isopanishad is not following that trend. So if you notice in the 18 verses that Isopanishad has, none of the verses has the name Krishna in it. And the reason because of that is because Isopanishad, as I mentioned, are not necessarily a bhakti scripture, but they are a scripture that is nudging people towards bhakti. So, right, just like, for example, somebody comes to the temple and then you meet them, but I sometimes personally feel unqualified to guide them. But then I can nudge them towards the right person. Hey, talk to this guy. He knows the questions you're looking for, right? But then I'm still somewhere in between there, right? I'm still a channel to push that new devotee or new person who's coming to the temple in the right direction. Similarly, Isopanishad by themselves are not necessarily preaching bhakti, but they are really nudging people towards the bhakti process. So that's why, and that's why I was saying, because people are in different stages in their lives or in their mindset. There are people who are not ready to understand the personal concept of God. They don't want to understand that God can be a person. You could have a relationship with God, right? In the fourth chapter, there is a verse of fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Vitraga bhaya krodha manmaya mahupashrita bhavo gyan tapasa puta madbhavam agata. That in this world, people are suffering from three problems, right? With raga bhaya, fear, attachment, and anger. And they are because of the way they have been treated in this world, and they suddenly they lose faith on God. So Krishna doesn't want to exclude them. He wants to bring them also into the fold of bhakti. But then he cannot directly bring them to the fold of bhakti. He's going to do it slowly. So for that, Isopanishad comes and slowly nudges them in the right direction. If right in the beginning in the Isopanishad, a person who's very much who's intellectual, if you come and just tell him, hey, Krishna is God, he's a person like you and me, we can have a relationship with him, that person will have a mental short circuit of some sort. Says, what do you mean all this? Allah, this all is nonsense, they'll go away. So that's why Prabhupada is also doing the exact same thing. He's just following the trend Isopanishad is following. Did that make sense, Adu?
Yeah, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering one more thing. So why don't we teach Ishanupya first, before going into, Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam? Just a curious question, that's all.
Why we don't teach Isopanishad?
Yeah, why do we not go to that one first, as devotees are coming in new?
So, see, people are at different positions in life. We don't know where they are. If they feel that they have to, understand it from an intellectual perspective, for them, Isopanishad might be the right book to start with. But then people, who are coming for bhakti, who are coming with that heart, no, I believe that God is a form, Krishna is God. They don't have to go through Isopanishad. Isopanishad is at a lower level than the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam, much lower level. So it depends where the person is, and if the person is more intellectual in nature and wants to understand God from an impersonal perspective and has some faith in the whole process, then they probably can start from Isopanishad. There's not a problem. But as you will see when we go through the whole book, it's a pretty complicated book. It's not easy to understand by itself. So that's another reason. You don't want to give Isopanishad right away to people. It's just going to throw them off the path. There will be so many things they won't understand, very complicated. That's why we start with, like baby steps for them.
Thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome.
Prabhuji, I have a quick comment. Yeah, I'm very surprised that Srila Prabhupada would, write a book without acknowledging Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just a thought. I understand, that this book is probably meant for neophytes or someone, just entering or learning about bhakti and or prior to a bhakti stage, but it's just surprising that that Srila Prabhupada would write a book and not acknowledge Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good point, Prabhu. I'm not sure if you were in the last discussion we had last week. I'm not sure if you were there. I mentioned why Prabhupada translated the Upanishad. There was a reason behind it. Because Upanishad fits right into the principle of Krishna consciousness. Even though it does not speak about Krishna, it fits right into the principles of Krishna consciousness. Right? It talks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though it does not name it. It talks about the personal form. There is the 15th verse of this chapter of the Isopanishad talks about how God has a form. It says, Satya Sthapitam Mukham. Mukham means the face. It talks of the face of God. Right? So, and then there is a relationship with God. So it's a very concrete theistic philosophy. And that's why Prabhupada brought it forward. Right? And its scope is very comprehensive. Right? Nature of the soul talks about, we'll read in this book about nature of the soul, the material, spiritual worlds, importance of devotion to God. And in the core itself, Isopanishad is a personalistic book. Right? So that's why Prabhupada translated this book. Right? It's one of the most fundamental foundational texts in all the Upanishads. And then Prabhupada also importantly, Prabhupada saw a very strong relevance of this book to modern society. Okay? Because what are the contemporary issues we all are seeing, right? There's themes, all these themes around us, materialism, right? Proper use of resources, nature of true knowledge. These are the things people don't have. And you will see in the next verse, the first verse of Isopanishad, it says, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena taktena bhunjita magada kascha swidhana. That everybody has their own quota to use in this world, and everybody is supposed to stick to that, knowing that everything belongs to the Supreme. So, proper use of resources. There is so much war going on out there where everybody is saying, oh no, this belongs to me, this belongs to you. So, Prabhupada knew exactly that modern society is suffering from these problems, and Isopanishad gives a very good directive to solve these problems. That's another reason why Prabhupada translated this book. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm saying is, Prabhupada having that oceanic intelligence that Prabhupada had, Prabhupada gave us very core Bhakti scriptures. Okay, he gave us Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad, nectar of devotion, right there, the core, the essence. But then he also knows that not everybody coming to the temple, who will be walking to the temple, will be ready to accept Krishna as God. So Prabhupada also wrote books for them. Okay? Prabhupada wrote books for many neophyte people. Very simple, right? Like for example, if you read which book is that? Rajvidya, the King of Knowledge. In the second chapter of Rajvidya, Prabhupada says, or devotees, we should speak our problems to Krishna very clearly. So Prabhupada is giving a very simple and a practical way of how to interact with Krishna. I'm just giving examples. How Prabhupada's different books can also focus on different levels of devotees, where they're coming from. Right? So yeah, sorry, a lot of reasons. Many reasons why Prabhupada translated it. His goal, yes, he wants to establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No doubt, that is the goal. But then how can he do that for people who are not ready yet to accept a personal form of God, or not yet ready to understand that God has a name, he's a person, he has relationship. They are not at that level of commitment, not at that level of elevation. So they have the Isopanishad for that. Okay. And if Prabhupada had brought the personal concept and talked about Krishna all over here, then the purpose of the book would have been lost. The purpose of the author who wrote Isopanishad would have been lost. That's the purpose here.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, long answer to your short question. Okay. Any more thoughts, anybody, before I start into the purport discussing that? No? Okay. So I wanted to bring out a concept. I think we have discussed this in the past, but I'm not sure if everybody remembers it or everybody is. So the concept of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The reason I'm bringing this up because Prabhupada, right in the first paragraph, he talks of the three concepts: the Brahman form, the Paramatma form, and the Bhagavan form. And he talks of the Satchidananda concept. I just wanted to briefly go over it so that if we have talked about it in the past, just a refresher. If you don't know or have doubts around it, just it will clarify for you. So let's look at the three aspects. So the three aspects are, so I've given an example here. So Brahman, I've shown a picture of sunlight. Okay, that's Brahman. And I'll talk in detail. I'm just giving you what's there in the picture. Then we have the middle picture, which is the sun globe by itself, which is the Paramatma concept. I'm exemplifying the Paramatma concept by that. And then there is a sun god. So that's the personal feature. Okay. So let's start with all three of them, and I'll walk you through all of them just so that it's clear to all of us. Brahman realization is when one starts perceiving that everything in the material nature is temporary, and he or she tries to think about something that must be beyond this, which is actually eternal in nature, right? I have a longing for eternity, right? I don't want to die. Where is that longing coming from? This longing is coming from an eternal point, right? So there has to be eternal life for me to desire eternal. That's what it means. So Brahman, that's the Brahman realization platform, that there is something beyond this material nature. Okay. So, and then I put a table just there to let you know that is the Sat Chit and Anand, right? So Sat means eternality, eternal. Chit means consciousness. Ananda means bliss. And I'll talk to you about all these three aspects as we go on each platform. So the Brahman is the Sat. He or she is getting a glimpse of the eternality aspect. Okay, that is eternal. There's something beyond this material world. What it is, the person doesn't know yet. Okay, that's the Brahman concept. And I'll give you another couple of examples when we go, just to give you a feel of what it is. Then comes so when one starts looking for the eternal and comes to the level of perceiving the eternal, then he has perceived the Sat aspect. Okay, that's the Sat aspect of the Supreme Lord. Right? So Sat aspect is a characteristic of those who have realized the Brahman. Okay, so now progressively, when one moves forward and thinks that there is order in this world, this world is perfect. It's a sun coming out at the right time, moon coming out at the right time, winter, summer, everything. So he realizes that this creation is controlled by a conscious being who's overseeing everything, right? And keeping this order. That person is keeping this order. Then one comes to the Chit level, right? So here one understands that there is a being who is supreme and the controller. So this is the Paramatma concept, right? So at this level, one's focus is on God as the controller of the material world. So remember that it's the controller aspect. Okay, so that's the Paramatma realization. Beyond this, when one evolves, he starts to think about the activities performed by that supreme being, right? Right. Most of people, what they think is what God can do for them, but they never even think of what God can do for himself, right? He has his own abode, he can enjoy, have friends, family. The people are not able to think of that. So that's a challenge. So when one understands that the goal of existence is to be happy, and therefore the absolute truth must also have this opulence of happiness in full, then we come to the concept of Bhagavan, Ananda. Okay, so Ananda means happiness. Okay, so now let me try to give you a couple of examples. Let's take a halwa, right? You all know what halwa is. Now, what does the halwa have? There are three aspects to it. One, there is the smell of the halwa. One, when you look at the halwa, and one, when you actually taste that halwa. So the Sat aspect, coming to the Brahman part again, Sat aspect, and that is like smelling the halwa. Okay, yeah, you smell it, but you don't know what it looks like, you don't know what it tastes like, right? And so there is no action associated with it. But then when it comes to the Paramatma level, so somebody understand there is a consciousness, right? So this is like seeing the halwa. There is some amount of consciousness there. But when it comes to Ananda, there is the taste also of it. So the Ananda aspect already has the Sat and Chit aspect. So it is complete. So similarly, I can look into this world and be amazed at it. Beautiful world, everything looks nice, perfect. I can understand there is somebody controlling it. But then when I have a relationship with Krishna, then I realize the full happiness in that, because there's a relationship. I can enjoy with Krishna in a very, very specific relationship, as a friend, family, as a friend, parent, servant, a loved one, whoever it may be. Everybody has their own relationship, which will be revealed to us as we progress in Bhakti. But for now, we are, as Prabhupada has taught us, we are just dasya, we are servants. That's the safest part to be in. But in the gradual way, we all can have a relationship with Krishna. So that's another way of understanding this concept of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Right? So, so another way, if I give you another example for Brahman platform, let's say there are three kids. They're standing on the railway platform. It's night. It's dark. Okay, it's a village area. No street lights or anything. So there's a village where a railway track has been constructed for the first time, and there are three children who have never seen a train before. They're waiting for the train approaching. So one kid sees a light, right? Every train has a light in front of it. So the one kid just sees the light and runs back home and says, "Oh, I've seen the train. I've seen the train. It's a light." Okay. And the second one, right? So no, I'm sorry. So the first one is the yeah. So it's a train. Yeah, it's a light. Okay, let's just keep it on. It's light. Okay. But there are other two children who are still waiting. And then when the train approaches, they perceive that there's more to the train. Okay. And there's an engine, there are several bogies to it, there are wheels, etc. Then the second child goes back to the village and says, "Oh, I know what the train is." So he explains his version of the train. Okay, his description is not wrong, but it's incomplete, right? Because the train is more than that. And the third child who's waiting there, he sees everything. The train has altered, that a person was driving it, and then with whom the child gets an opportunity to shake his hands, and then that the person explains everything about the train to the child, right? So then this third child has got the complete understanding of what a train is. The driver, the engine, the bogies, the light, the horn, everything. Right? So it's not about whose version is correct or incorrect. It's a matter of being complete or incomplete. Right? So in this case, the third child got an almost complete perception of the train because he was patient enough to see completely till the end. Right? So going back, what I'm exemplifying, what I'm explaining you by these examples is, it's not that the Brahman concept, Brahman platform, Paramatma platform, or the Bhagavan platform, they are different. It's just that I perceive them differently according to my spiritual knowledge and understanding, my mindset. But there are three different ways in which we can perceive God: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Right? But they all are complete in itself. It's just the way I am looking at it. So it's my imperfection that I'm portraying on the concept of Bhagavan, of Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. Right? And accordingly, the way I look at it, that's what reciprocation I get. Brahman, it's only eternal. Paramatma, it's eternal and conscious. But the Ananda only comes with the Bhagavan level. So that's how the Bhagavan level, when I have this understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God and I can have a relationship, that's when it becomes complete. From my perspective. Is it? So that's why I just wanted to explain to you, because Prabhupada is talking about it and it directly explained to us the concept of completeness. Okay, I'll take a pause here. If anything was not clear in the concept of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. It's very important. I've talked about it many times in the past, but just want to repeat it again.
Prabhuji, so all the examples you cited, like, the smell of halwa, the beauty of the nature, or the light of the train, how is the eternal aspect, like, how can that be explained by the eternal aspect, like the sat feature?
So
I didn't quite follow
yeah, that's a good point. So you have to understand that not all analogies are complete. They're just meant to give you a part of it. I was just giving you is what I was explaining was that there's a difference in the way we perceive the three children, that example I gave, or the halwa example I gave. There was a difference in the way the three children were perceiving the train. That's what I wanted to exemplify. I was not exemplifying the eternal or the conscious concept by those analogies. So not all analogies are meant to be complete. As long as they convey the message, that's more than enough.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. So they're not, so those examples are not meant to give you a concept of eternality. For that part, I did explain in the beginning, as I was saying, right, that when we start looking for the eternal and we come to the level of perceiving that there has to be something beyond this, which is eternal, because I have a longing for eternal. That's the eternal concept of this Brahman platform.
I see. Thank you.
So it doesn't. It's the examples don't. The analogies don't talk of that part. That I just was saying because that helps us understand how different people can look at the same thing differently. So the thing does not change, but my vision changes, and accordingly I'm perceiving that thing. Similarly, people, they can perceive God or Krishna in different ways according to their knowledge, according to their perseverance, their patience, and so on and so forth.
I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes.
Like the Brahman aspect, knowing that we are not this body, we are the spirit spark, and that spirit, the soul has no birth, no death, it can be cut into pieces, all those things. That aspect, if we know that we are beyond this body mind, then we can perceive it. But how do we perceive the Paramatma part, Paramatma aspect of the God?
Okay, let me take you. I might have talked about this verse in the past, which was it 2:14:38, right? Let's see. Where Prabhupada talks about how do we perceive the super soul sitting in our heart. That's what you're asking, right? Basically, Paramatma concept is that super soul aspect. We are connecting with it. Let me quickly show you that verse 2:14:38, if I remember it correctly. I'm opening up my 2:14 Canto 1, 2. Is it? What was it? Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to find out which verse was that. I remember 2:14. Where did that go? I think it's 2:4. Just give me 1 minute. I'll tell you that verse where Prabhupada very clearly explains how we can connect with the super soul aspect, how we can perceive the super soul aspect. Okay, just give me 1 minute. I'll take a minute to search it. I know it's in the second canto, but I don't remember which verse number was that. 2. Oh yeah, that was the word, right? Anumapake. Anumapake. Okay. 2:35. Oh, finally I found it. Okay, so I'll show you 2:35. It's one of my favorite verses, and I forgot it. The purport is amazing. My favorite purports. Verse is good, yes. Okay, let me share my screen. So, okay. So now, what this verse is saying is, this is a discussion between Narad Muni and Yudhishthira. So Narad Muni is telling the personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul. That means as a super soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. And Prabhupada in this purport says that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma feature. But now to answer your question, Prabhupada is telling us right here, the presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. And Prabhupada walks you through the whole path of like how you can do it, that you can understand there's Paramatma sitting in your heart. I'll read a bit of the paragraph, but it's a long purport. I won't go through the whole thing. The procedure is as follows. When one can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. Okay, he may not feel it very abruptly, but by using intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels. But as such, the hand, the leg, the head cannot be identified with the self. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate his self from other things that he sees. So the natural conclusion is that the living being, either man or beast, is the seer, and he sees besides himself all the other things. So there is a difference between the seer and the seen. Now, by little use of intelligence, we can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or to move independently. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. And he talks of different senses. So I'm just saying, so if you read this purport, Madhi, you will get, Prabhupada gives a very clear path of how to focus on the Paramatma and how to know that Paramatma exists in our heart.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I think you mentioned before also, sorry.
I know, I mentioned this before. I mentioned it many times and I forgot about this. It's a very good verse. This and the other one, I think, was 7:14:38. These two verses, they go very well. If you want to know more about it, you can read the other one also. Yes, so that's how we perceive the Paramatma aspect of Krishna. Anything else, anyone? Otherwise, I'll jump into the purport. Nothing. Okay. So that's the first paragraph of the purport, which we talked about. And then, oh, I'm not sharing this slide. Sorry, I'm not sharing my slides. Where's the slide? And the second thing is, yes, second one is material world is complete. That's the second thing Prabhupada is saying. So after talking about the Brahman Paramatma feature, he talks of the Satchidanand concept. Then he's coming to that. He's saying that the material world is also complete. So now that's a very interesting thing to say, how the material world is also complete, how to understand that part. So let's look at that part now, how the material world is complete. So in a gist, in an essence, material world is complete for the purpose it is meant to be. Our free will is meant to voluntarily surrender to Krishna. But when we misuse that free will, it becomes a source of misery. Then it seems incomplete. We are not able to fulfill our desires. Or there is an illusory completeness, very tiny. And what happens is that the reason Prabhupada brought out the concept of Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan was because after people have enjoyed material life, trying to enjoy material life, they become frustrated. Many, many lives. After many, many lives, I have tried for millions of lives, trying to be happy. I couldn't be. Right? I've been trying to arrange for some kind of happiness in this material. When I'm not able to do that, I become to the level of a jnani, right? And I'm trying to liberate myself from this material world. Right? So Krishna says, 7th chapter, right? 7th chapter, what's that? 19th verse. Bhaunam janmanam ante, jnanavan mam prapadyate, vasudeva sarvamiti, sa mahatmasu durlabha. That Bahunam janmanam ante, after many, many births, a person comes to the point of realizing that Bhagavan, Vasudev, Krishna is everything. And then he surrenders. So for millions of lives, I have tried to look for completeness in this material world. But every single effort of mine has been frustrating. It's very humiliating. I keep looking for happiness. I try to keep fixing everything. You know? I'm getting old. My skin is getting wrinkly. I try to bring an anti-wrinkle cream. So I'm trying to fix it, but there is no fix. There's no permanent fix. Eventually, this body is going to perish. Right? After many, many births of trying to enjoy, being frustrated, crying, then I come to the point, no, there has to be something more than this. Right? And then I try to look for it. Then I become a jnani. I'm trying to intellectually understand it. Right? But then a point after many, many bursts of that intellectual search comes to a point where I understand, no, Krishna is the Supreme. But that Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Durlabha means hard to find. Sudurlabha means very hard to find. So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out in one way in this purport, right? So unless one gets that relationship with Bhagavan, then the likelihood of slipping down from whatever position we are in and coming back to this material world is great. Because only that relationship is satisfying enough to keep the living entity engaged in a blissful activity, right? We all need activity. Without activity, we cannot survive. And if there's no bliss in that activity, then I will eventually gravitate towards material variety, material world, because that will look attractive to me from a distance, right? So that's how we come here. So material world is also complete. So there's always a debate between theists and atheists. Theists say there is so much good in this world. There is a whole arrangement. What a majestic arrangement out there. The rain comes, grains grow, I eat them, I become strong. So there must be a divine intelligence. But then the atheists, they say, oh, you're looking at the good, there is so much wrong in this world, right? Just see how imperfect the system is. If rain is meant to grow grains, why is it falling on the ocean? There's already water out there, right? So the evidence of design is undeniable. There is a design behind it. But some still say there is no design, right? There is no creator, right? So, for example, cloud formation, it's a very complex procedure. So people say, oh, everything is happening automatically. There is no intelligence behind it. Just like we read in the 16th chapter, right? The mentality of the demoniac. That everything, there's no foundation to anything. That was in the 16th chapter. Paraspara Sambhutam ki manna kama hetutam. That all sex desire is the basis of everything. So it's just that they just don't have any. So they say, oh, everything is working automatically. Yeah, everything might be working automatically, but then automatically doesn't mean that there is no designer behind it. It just means that the designer has created the design so perfectly that he doesn't have to intervene to maintain it. That's what it means. That's why people who don't see God, they say, oh, there is no God. But no, Krishna has made the system so perfect that he doesn't have to intervene in it. It's a cycle is going, right? Just look at it, right? That what do we breathe in? What do we breathe in? I'm looking for an answer, not just a question. What do we breathe?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Where does oxygen come from?
Air.
No, I understand air. Trees give oxygen, right? So trees are giving out oxygen. But then what do I exhale? That's carbon dioxide. So what do the trees take in? They take in carbon dioxide. What a perfect system, right? My waste product is the raw material for somebody else. And their waste product is the raw material for me. So what a perfect world. What a perfect world it is. It's complete. Right? So what I'm explaining is that if we see the purpose behind what this world is meant to be, then it's going to be complete. But if we use it for something else, then it's going to be incomplete. And I'll go into more detail around that. So let's say, I'll give you an example. If I want to write a book, okay, let's say I'm writing a book, and I take up my phone and I start writing a book on my phone. I can do it, that's fine. I might be able to do it, but it's going to be extremely frustrating. I'm going to go and curse the designer and say, oh my God, your design is so flawed. I'm trying to write a book and I can't write a book on this instrument. But then what's the purpose of a phone? It's communication through speech. And yes, there's some limited availability of messages. But it's not designed to write a book on the phone. Right? Take a computer to write a book. So what I'm explaining is, if I impose my purpose on the phone and evaluate the phone based on my purpose, I can find faults in it. Design is good if it serves the purpose for which it was originally meant to be. Right? So how good is the world? That should be, or how good is the world's design? That should be evaluated based on its purpose. So now we can ask this question, okay, what's the purpose of this world? I feel that it is for me to enjoy here. Okay? So I feel that the purpose of this world is enjoyment. But then it becomes it's an imperfect design if I feel that this world is for my enjoyment. As we all know, there's a limited sense enjoyment, and only for a limited period of life. Right? How long do we live? 70, 80? Out of that, hardly, you can say, somewhere in between those 40, 50 years is where you can eat whatever you like. I'm not sure if everybody even has that luxury. But there's only a very limited time you can eat whatever you like. It's not like when I turn 80 and I can eat whatever I want. No, that's not the way it's meant to be. Right? So whenever I think of enjoyment, this world is imperfect. It's not complete. Okay. I'll give you an example. I knew this old person, he was probably in his 70s, and he was leaving his body. So some devotees got together and we were taking care, not necessarily taking care, but just we used to visit him. He was all by himself. So devotees would visit him, take some prasadam for him, read the Bhagavatam to him. However, he had lived a life of enjoyment, right? So he would, his son he was all by himself in his house, but his son was living close by to his house. So every day he would ask his son to bring pizza for him, pizza and Coke. And so his son, nice son, he would bring pizza and Coke for him every day. But that person who was dying, he only could take one bite of that pizza. I personally saw it so many times. Just one bite of pizza, not more than a bite. So, but that frustrated him because his constant desire was to enjoy. I want to eat pizza. But then he could not. So for him, this world is imperfectly designed. Okay. But if you look at it from the other perspective, from a theist perspective, there has been arrangement for everything in this world. Food, air, water, everything. Everything is properly arranged. I have just in my front of my house, there's my neighbor, he has a peach tree in his house. Okay. And he doesn't pluck those peaches. I don't know why. He doesn't pluck it. But I've seen those peaches, squirrels eat those peaches. I've seen crows eat those peaches, and those peaches are lying all over the place. I've seen squirrels. I don't know how they even carry it. They carry peaches around. They take it with them. They enjoy those peaches, right? So there are so many different living entities that are just living by that tree. Right? There are birds that come in. They probably just peek it, just take a bite out of it and leave, right? So this material creation is very well designed, even beyond our imagination. Right? So, and everyone is being fed. That's what I was giving the example. There's a perfect arrangement in this nature. So it's Purna. The word Purna is being used. It is completely perfect. And this is just the external energy of the Lord. It's not even this internal energy. So understand it from that perspective. So from its perspective, from its purpose, it's complete. Right? But then so I'm saying that, everything is perfect. Everything has been designed for a purpose. The atheist will say, oh no, but there is so much suffering in here. Right, yeah, I agree with you. There is suffering here. And both are true. There is things have been made for my living also. There is suffering also. And there's a purpose behind that also, right? And I'll give you an example. A jail. A jail is an example where both these things are. There is, for people who go into the jail, there is air, there is food, there is water. But then there's also suffering. They cannot leave their room for 23 hours a day, right? So, but then just because there is suffering doesn't mean the design is wrong. Purpose of jail is to reform the prisoners. Similarly, in a hospital bed, right? Both the things are there. Patients who go there, they are also given food to eat and all that, but then they're also stuck in a room and they're suffering. There's somebody suffering from cancer and so on and so forth. So this world can be a prison for those who are rebellious in nature. No, I don't believe in the concept of God. I'll enjoy for myself. The 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, demoniac nature. You can read that. But then it's a hospital for those who are interested in rectifying this enjoying mentality. Right. So for a person who's considering this material world as a hospital, that's what devotees think, that I'm here for my correction. Right. It's all for me. It's all a lesson for me to take to improve myself, to become a better person, a better version of myself. Lord Brahma says that in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 8. Tatte anukampam susamikshamano bhunjani vatra kritam vipakam vidbhav mudvir vidadan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadaya. That people who just keep tolerating whatever is coming to them, understand that they're in a hospital, they will be suffering, and just live their life according to the principles given to them, then they will surely come back home, back to God. So that's what it means, that the material world is complete. We have to look at it in a way that it's being used for its purpose, then the completeness will be demonstrated. Otherwise, it will be a source of suffering for me. So that's what it means, that the world is complete. Material world is complete. Okay, so this was the second paragraph. Anything about this? Anybody has any comments, thoughts?
Prabhuji, I had a question. It's in reference to ISO 3. Is it okay if I ask?
So the third version?
Yeah.
Let's do it when we come to it, Matli.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Keep your question. We'll address it when we come to it. I don't know. Isopanishad is a bit of a complicated book. I don't want to jump forward.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, looks like the concept of this world is being complete is clear. Okay, so the third part is, where's that? Third part is, the human form offers complete facility. That's the third paragraph of the purport. This, which one? The one that that's the third, right? So 1, 2, 3. That's the third one. And so what Prabhupada is telling us, there is a complete facility for the small complete units, namely us, the living beings, to realize the complete. And all forms of incompleteness are experienced only on account of incomplete knowledge of the complete. The human form of life is a complete manifestation of the consciousness of living being, which is obtained after evolving through 8.4 million species of life in the cycle of birth and death. If a human being does not realize his completeness within the complete, in this life full of consciousness, he loses the chance of realizing and is put again into the cycle of evolution by the laws of nature. So, yes. So yes, the human form is complete. So now somebody can say, okay, I'm saying that, okay, a theist is saying, oh, there's perfect arrangement, there is food, air, water for me. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But then this food, air, water is also available to animals, right? Animals get it through nature. Yeah, I have to go look for my clothing, right? But if you notice, there are so many animals in the animal world. There are so many species that have a way to cope up with the winters. I know squirrels, they get a thicker covering when the winters come, right? They don't have to go buying for a coat or a jacket. It just comes to them naturally. So what I'm saying is that the arrangement of food, clothing, and shelter is also available to animals. So then how is the human form complete? Okay. So the whole world is, there's so much of war going on around human rights, that there are people who are poor, they don't have clothing and so forth. Yeah, no, I understand, that's a good thing. We should help them out. But then that food, clothing concept is also available to animals. How am I different? Human rights in this world, generally when people talk about it, it only gives to them what even animals can get. But the true human right is when we give what only humans can get. And what is that right? the right to enlighten, right to understanding the purpose of this world. It's only in human life can we perceive the spiritual reality. Only humans can perceive this higher reality. No animal can do it. Right? And that's Prabhupada is telling us, we can attain completeness in this life itself. Right? But if you miss this chance, we go back to being an animal. Well, devotees don't go becoming an animal. We start from wherever we leave. Krishna tells this us in the 6th chapter. Arjuna asks him, what happens to those people who are not able to complete their bhakti process? So Krishna says, Srimatan Shuchinam Srimatan Gehe Yoga Bhrashta Vijaya. That they're born in good families. You don't have to worry about food, clothing, and shelter. It's taken care of for them. So yeah, for devotees, not that. But in general, if a human being doesn't understand the purpose of this human body is to perceive spiritual reality, he or she will eventually go downwards. Oh, I just want to enjoy. There is nothing beyond this world, no higher reality. I meant to enjoy. Let me look for a spouse with whom I can enjoy, physical pleasures, or probably sensual pleasures. So that's just it. So our human form is complete to understand those higher realities. Whereas the animal form is not complete. It's incomplete. But going back to the concept of whether we use it or not, that makes the whole difference. Similarly, like we talked about the world, right? I can perceive the world in whatever way I want to and be either happy or frustrated. Similarly, this human form of body also, if I don't understand the purpose of it, is to perceive spiritual reality, then I can suffer. And then this human form will not be complete. It's nowhere meant for enjoyment. This human form is not meant for enjoyment. If you all have this book called the Higher Taste at Your Home, it has 50 recipes. It's been published by ISKCON, the Bhakti-Vedanta Book Trust. But the initial, there are I think 3 or 4 chapters that give a very scientific reason why we are not meant to be non-vegetarians. We are not supposed to eat meat. Our intestines are very long, so the meat stays there for a long time and releases toxins. Our teeth are not meant to cut into meat, and our nails are not meant to be like that. And there are so many reasons given in there. But then when I want to eat meat and think, oh, no, that is for me to enjoy, then suffering comes. And that's the incomplete understanding of this human form. Right? So we all are a part of Krishna. Krishna says this, Mama Ivanshu Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, 15th chapter, verse number 7. So we are part and parcel of Krishna. But then our consciousness can be at different levels. But depending on my consciousness, I might or might not be able to perceive the true purpose of this human form. There is a consciousness is called Chetana in Sanskrit. So there is Avritta Chetana. Avritta Chetana is trees, plants, creepers, mountains, this kind of thing. Then there is Sankuchita Chetana, very contracted, shrunken consciousness. There are aquatics, birds, beasts. But then even in human beings, there can be different levels of consciousness. Well, there's Mukulita Chetana. Mukulita Chetana means there is a budding consciousness. It's a mode of ignorance. There is very tiny, consciousness is not developed at all. Budding, mode of ignorance. Vikachit Chetana. Vikachit Chetana is blossoming consciousness. But then the Purna Vikachit Chetana is of a completely blossomed consciousness. They are people who are, who are advanced and who have understood the purpose of this human. So even in humans, there is a probability that we might not be able to perceive the high reality. So we are no better than animals then. Prabhupada told us that eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, even animals do. And if you spend your whole life doing these 4 things, you're no better than animals. We're just 2-legged animals, that's all. So that's why the human form is complete if we are able to perceive higher realities. And Prabhupada in the purport, he talks, in the next purport, I think, next paragraph, he talks of the hand. So let's say, I'll show you the example. So I'm reading this part. For example, the hand of a body is a complete unit as long as it is attached to the complete body. When the hand is detached from the body, it may appear like a hand, but actually it has none of the potency of a hand. Similarly, living beings are part and parcel to the complete whole. And as long as part and parcel are detached from the complete whole, the illusory representation of completeness is not enough to bring the desired result. Right? So our completeness, is dependent on Krishna. Krishna is saying, Mama Ivamshu Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta, you are my part and parcel. So how can my completeness be independent of Krishna? It can never be. Because I am his part and parcel, my completeness will be associated with Krishna. And that's why Prabhupada is giving the example of a hand. We are meant to live a life of happiness. But when we are disconnected, when we are in this incompleteness, we start looking for material things for that to seek completeness. Right? There are a lot of promises that this material world gives of enjoyment and pleasure. But then they are not complete. They never give us what they are promising. It's a pain. When we are young, we think that I need a spouse, I need a partner to be happy. We get a partner and then we are fighting. How do they say it, right? How do you say it? Love at first sight, divorce at first fight. That's the happiness we're looking for. So it promises completeness, but it's limited. We remain incomplete. Right? Like, for example, a child, right? A child's demanding, oh, no, I want this, I want this. My son, Keshav, he wanted a smartwatch. And he was after us like for such a long time. And then finally I got him one. And you'll not believe it, that since the day I bought him, he's rarely worn it. He doesn't want to wear it now. He thinks it's a big pain to charge it. He thinks, oh my God, I have to charge my watch. The battery just runs out so quickly. So that's the mentality we all have. Well, my toys are bigger and different than his, but still I'm looking for toys. So that's what our mind does to us. Our mind has fearsome godlike powers. In the 11th canto, Avanti Brahman says that Bhishmo hi deva sahasa sahiyam. That the mind has fearsome godlike powers. Right? So and Prabhupada says he's saying is the completeness of human life can only be realized when the human form of life is engaged in the service of the complete whole. This comes to the last paragraph. Devotional service completes us. That's the last paragraph Prabhupada explains to us. The devotional service completes us. He brings it us to devotional service. So as I was telling you, how Isopanishad is also nudging us towards the devotional service and the personal aspect of God. And it's the same thing Prabhupada is doing. He's nudging us towards it. So this material world, as I was saying, it promises completeness, but it delivers perpetual incompleteness. There is a misleading sense of enjoyment there. Right? Devotional service makes us complete. And how is that? By connecting us perfectly to the complete whole. Right? So as a tiny being, I can get some little bit of enjoyment. But our connection to Krishna gives us that infinite happiness. For example, let's say you have a torch, right? So torch runs on a battery. But then how long can it run on a battery? 2 hours, 4 hours, 6, 8 hours? You never know. Short duration. But if I figure out a way by which I can connect it to the power socket, then there is unlimited energy to it. It can run unlimited. Similarly, when I try to enjoy by myself, I can enjoy it for some time here and there, but eventually it dies out and there is frustration coming along with it. But when I connect to the power source, that is Krishna, then I realize the supreme happiness. Then it becomes complete. Right? So connecting with Krishna is what Prabhupada has concluded in this purport. There are 3 kinds of devotees. There's a casual devotee. Right? They bring Krishna in some parts of their lives, and in other parts, they don't include Krishna. Right? Yeah, I do some service, but Krishna is only a small part of my life. Those are casual devotees. There are some who are committed devotees. They do everything for Krishna and connect everything to Krishna. Okay? But then there are confidential devotees who have developed spontaneous love for Krishna. They say, I offer everything for Krishna, but Krishna, you are mine. That's a confidential devotee. Right? Like Yashoda Maya. Krishna is ready to be even beaten by pure devotees. Yeah? So that's the love. That's a confidential devotee. So I'm personally hanging between casual and committed, trying to be committed. but we also strive to be confidential devotees. At least be committed devotees for sure. But I'm still striving to come to the level of committedness. I'm somewhere between casual and committed. So when we become committed to Krishna, then we become a committed, confident, or confidential devotee. Okay, I'll take a pause here. That's what I had in terms of thoughts around this purport. If anybody has any thoughts, comments, please share. Questions, anything that you didn't get in this purport.
Can I ask one question, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
So in the translation of this invocation, it says that whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. You said that, like, we know that we are part and parcels of Krishna, right? So are we complete in ourselves, or just like you said that devotion completes us, or attachment to Krishna completes us? Because we just read it in the last introduction that we are not complete, like we have those defects in us. So I was just a bit confused.
Yes, we have defects in us. That's a very good question. We do have defects in us. However, we are complete in the sense that the purpose we are here for, right? We talked about in this one invocation, we talked about the purpose. The purpose defines the completeness or the incompleteness. If I understand that my purpose is to connect to Krishna, if I fully have realized it, accepted it, I become a committed devotee, a confidential devotee, then I'm complete in itself. But then, so it's a bit of a tricky thing, right? My completeness is in connection with Krishna. Right? So there is a tiny completeness that I'm running with, which is if I fully understand what my purpose is. But my full completeness comes only when I'm connected to Krishna. So understanding it that way. I'm complete. So for example, me sitting here, if I'm doing my bhakti in a very perfect way, I'm completely using this human form that I've got. So within that individual unit that I am, I'm complete, right? But then how am I becoming that complete is through that connection with Krishna. Did that make sense, or did it confuse you further?
No, yeah.
I know what you're asking. Is just what I'm mentioning is that the word. Let's look at the translation. Just give me a second. Let's go there. Let's see. So yes, you're saying that all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as a complete whole. That's the word to look into. Right? Perfectly equipped. We all are perfectly equipped as a complete whole. It's not so. We are perfectly equipped as a complete whole. That means I have all the tools necessary as a complete being. Right? Let's say, for example, you buy something from IKEA. They give you everything, right? It's a full package in there. They give you everything. They give you how to screw up, how to tighten it, the instructions and everything. So it's perfectly equipped as a complete whole. But then it's not going to make it by itself. I have to work on it to make it. So even though that unit was complete in itself, still it needed me to fully exhibit that completeness. That's why Prabhupada is not saying it that we are complete. He's saying we are perfectly equipped as complete whole. Now it depends on me whether I fully realize it or not realize that completeness. Tell me, how did I confuse you, or did I make sense?
No, Prabhuji, sorry. I think you froze. I don't know if it's for me or for everyone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I actually lost you after you said, like, we got it from IKEA, but it's not like it's a complete package, but we have to make it.
Let me go back to that. Okay. So what I was saying is, a package you bring from IKEA is perfectly equipped as a complete whole in itself, right? Everything is in there. The whole package is there. But I have to open up the package and make it. So you understand that there's a completedness in the IKEA package of itself also. But then in one sense, it also needs me to complete it because I'm the one who's going to make it and use it. So similarly,
Right.
I as a human form, I'm complete in myself. I'm fully equipped. I'm complete. But then, what am I complete for? I'm complete to connect to Krishna. That's where the completeness comes in. Also, when happens. Does that make sense?
I
Does that
see.
IK example
Yes,
work?
yes, 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 yes.
So,
It
right,
does.
so what I'm trying to say is there are two levels of completedness. One is the completedness is me as a whole. Like, okay, right? Yeah, this is me. This is Prem Dham. Prem Dham has intelligence. Prem Dham can chant in the morning. His tongue works fine. He's got hands. He can rotate the beads. But then so this completeness, what am I using this completeness for? I'm using this to connect with Krishna.
Mhm.
So I have the whole package. But then I need Krishna to bring out that completeness from me.
I see.
Yeah, that's the way it is. That's why Prabhupada is saying perfectly equipped. I have all the tools needed to be a complete whole within itself. This world has everything it needs to be perfect. But then if I don't use it in the way it's supposed to be used, it becomes incomplete.
Mm.
So it's a sense, it's a way we perceive it and use it. So we have everything, but then it can be complete or incomplete depending on how I use it. Like, for example, the IKEA thing I gave you. I bring the whole package from IKEA, but then I misalign things. I don't make it the way it's supposed to be. So then it's not complete then. It's incomplete. But then the same package can be complete if I use it properly, if I fully read the instructions. So even though the package was complete in itself, its completeness was brought out or demonstrated by me, by my connection to it, by my
Mm.
working on it. Similarly, my completeness or the completeness of this world is brought out, is demonstrated by my connection with Krishna.
I understand now. Thank
You
you.
got it? Okay. Thank you for asking that question. Helped me clarify my thoughts also. Thank you. Anything else, anybody?
Yeah, Prabhuji, I had a quick question. So Prabhuji, we have, sharper intelligence, and we remember the Lord, right? Where does that place the animals, right? Very few animals remember the Lord, I think, because, like the dog that Prabhupada talks about, right?
Well,
He
no,
goes,
well, technically, Madhuri, no animals have this concept of God. There's no animals who have this.
right. So how do they get to that point where, they get to a human race to serve the Lord?
That's why Prabhupada was saying it. You were saying it in the purport somewhere. Let's see. Yes. The human form of life is a complete manifestation of consciousness of the living being, which is obtained after evolving through 8.4 million species of life in the cycle of birth and death. What happens is, once I fall into the animal kingdom, I have to go through all the 8.4 million species before I come back to the human birth. Or human, yeah. So, but then when I'm in those other species, there is no concept of, I don't have a consciousness. My consciousness is very constricted. It cannot think of God. Right? So I have to go through those lives, and then eventually I'll come to the concept of I'll come to being a human being. Then again, I have this consciousness, by which I can make a very thought out decision. This is the path I want to take, or this is not the path I want to take. And that facility is only available to human beings, to not anybody else, to no animal species. They have to go through the whole 8.4 million species before they come back to a human birth again. And then in that human birth again, they might choose to misuse that human birth and go back again to a animal life. And again go into the 8.4 million species.
So do they have pious deed where, somehow, like, an animal would end up in a devotee's home, for instance, like I was feeding prasad to my dogs, kind of thing, right? When I have prasad, I feed prasad to deers. So something like that. Of course they have pious activities. That's why they automatically, I guess, get landed in that situation, right?
Animals don't have a concept of karma. It's not like if a lion kills a deer, he has to suffer because of it. No. So animal life, animal species, they don't have a concept of karma. What you just mentioned, it's your mercy that's being manifested. It's not necessarily something that the animal did. It's your mercy that is giving them prasada. And your mercy might help them come out of that animal life in the very next birth. You don't know. But the animal doesn't have to play a role, has no role in it. It's your mercy, your karma, your activity that's giving them that mercy. That's what we all do, right? When we go out for book distribution, that's what we are doing. People who have been just walking this world without knowing what is to be done, what is not to be done, suddenly you go and you say, hey, take this book and read it. And they read it and suddenly they come out of that path and they start walking and they become a devotee and they start living a life which is conducive to our purpose. But that's your mercy on that. And obviously they have some sukriti of their own, but that's only for humans. Animals don't have that concept.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are two examples. Jad Bharat, before that was a deer, and also the other example of Gajendra. How to understand that they remembered Lord and
both of those, Mataji, both of those examples are they're very specific examples. If you notice, Bharat, King Bharat was at the Bhava stage. He was nearly a pure devotee. So he came to the life of an animal because of a mistake he made, but then Krishna was very merciful on him. Krishna said, oh, no, because you made a mistake in your last moment, all your hard work is gone. No, Krishna took care of him. He gave him that intelligence by which he could go back to and hang out with devotees, the right kind of people. So those are very specific examples. Similarly, Gajendra, the story of Gajendra, there is a story of King Indradyumna and King Huhu, if you read the background story of them. So they both were very pious kings in their past lives, but then they were cursed to become animals in their next lives. So that's a very special case where we are seeing these animals being remembering their past lives or remembering. So that's a special mercy of Krishna. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
But if a human being is completely misusing this life and he becomes an animal in his next life, he won't have that mercy from Krishna. That, oh, let me remind you of your past life. No, Krishna doesn't do that. Only for devotees does Krishna have mercy. Right? In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 29th verse, Krishna says, Sammoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshwasti napriya. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya maite teshu chapiham. That I don't care about, all these people are living, I'm neither envious of them nor favorable to them. They're just following the cycle of karma. But if you become my devotee, maite teshu chapiham, you live in me and I live in you. We become like close buddies. Then I take care of you. You have served me, you have been trying to connect with me, I'll take care of you. Even if you make a mistake, I'll take care of you. Pratijani konteya nami bhaktya pranashati. Krishna says in 9th chapter that even if you make a mistake accidentally, I still will pull you out of it. But that provision is only for the devotees, not for non-devotees. Something.